the world has a way of teaching you lessons. Like when you approach building a company with a belief that is a wrong belief, that belief will get beat out of you one way or another, right? Like if you approach building a company thinking culture doesn't matter, I promise you, in 5 years, you will know that culture matters.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Human First Leadership. My name's Connor Drake. I'm a senior coach at MindMaven. We're an executive coaching firm that helps startup leaders and VCs 10x their productivity and save 12 or more hours a week by fundamentally changing the way they work with a partner like an executive assistant or a chief of staff. But more importantly, we teach them how to leverage that time to invest into relationships and to reach their fullest potential. On that note, today I am thrilled to be joined by Tyler Maloney. Tyler is the founder and CEO of Teach Me To, an amazing organization that matches students with skilled private coaches to master new skills in the arts, in sports, in music. And he's just an all-around great human being, and I'm thrilled to have him on the show. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you, Connor. Excited to be here.
I can't wait to dive in. We've had some initial conversations back and forth. You have some really great insights to share around this concept of being a human first leader. So what do you say you and I jump straight in?
Let's do it.
Excellent. All right, let's start with this. What does it mean to you to be a human first leader in today's world?
I think the phrase can mean so many different things. I think to me, the starting point has to be coming from a position of humility. You kind of have to start with the belief that teams are much greater than the sum of the individual parts, right?
Mm,
Which I think for entrepreneurs sometimes can be a difficult place to start. You come in, and part of why you jump into this is because you're a little crazy and confident that you can go build the next big thing. And you learn very quickly that you have strengths, you have weaknesses. And when you can assemble a team of really talented people that complement each other, you can do great things together. But that requires being humble about your own weaknesses and aware of them. And so to me, that's what human first leadership means, is the ability to kind of recognize that doing anything great is going to really be about the people that you bring together.
absolutely. And when you and I were first talking about this, you'd said something I felt was very insightful. You said this can be a challenge for founders because they tend to be very ambitious, take on the world, you can do anything. Um, And you shared a little anecdote about a team member who you realized was better at something than you, and that being difficult to come to terms with sometimes. What do you do personally when you feel those emotions bubbling up? How do you temper them and remind yourself?
Yeah, I think anybody that's built a team gets to that point. And the initial like monkey brain reaction is insecurity,
Mm,
right? You're like, man, I hired this person in. They're saying we should do thing A. I'm thinking thing B. They explained it. They're right. I'm wrong. And that keeps happening. Like, oh, shoot, like this guy or this woman knows how to do this thing better than I do. Um, and, I have an advisor, Graham Weaver, who I talked to about this at some point. Like, that's the point. Like, you're not hiring well if you're the best at everything. You need to hire people who are better than you at the thing you hire them to do. That's why you hire them, right? But it still triggers that insecurity at first when you get to that moment. Um, and so I'm not perfect at it. I mean, I know many times I'll lie in bed with my wife at night and be like, man, I worried that I'm not good enough at X, Y, or Z thing. And she's like, honey, like that's the point. Like, that's why you bring these people in. So I think just trying to like almost meditative, like learn to like not be reactive to that moment of insecurity, but like observe it and then respond to it and realize like there's a little longer neural path to be like, this is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. Even though the
mm.
initial feeling is bad, like take it around the far side and realize.
An element of mindfulness in there, almost observing thoughts rather than reacting to thoughts.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I love that. Okay. Okay. So it seems like you naturally kind of tend to gravitate toward that human first, build a team and empower them mindset. As you build that team and you get disparate people with different skills, different backgrounds, all coming together, how do you get them to work together toward a common goal?
Part of it's about hiring. It's about bringing the right people together. Part of it is about motivating, and part of it's about vision and having clarity about where you're going.
Mhm.
Um, from a hiring perspective, I mean, we look for kind of two things. I look for energy makers, not energy takers. And I look for people that are we ambitious, not me ambitious. So I think that's the qualities that it takes to get the right people in the room. Um, then you have to figure out how to motivate, get the absolute best out of those people, right? Which generally is a combination of like um, care personally, challenge directly is one of my favorite sayings. Like it's not coddling; it's really pushing people and saying, "Hey, I think you can do better." Like it's constantly taking people and challenging them to bring out their best. But you can only do that if they know that you care and that your intention in saying that is not to be a jerk. Your intention in saying that is to like help them be the best they can be and help the organization win. So I think there's a relationship and trust that has to be there if you're going to get the best out of a team. And then it's about vision and clarity. Like you got to know exactly where you're going. They need to understand it. Every single decision they have to run back and say, "Hey, I'm not sure. Are we going this direction or that direction? You need to make it." Doesn't work very well. They have the same picture in their head of where you're headed and what the vision is. Then everyone can make decentralized good decisions that align and you can row in the same direction.
So there's so much to dive into there that it's hard to figure out where to start. But let's go to the first thing that you mentioned was the idea of hiring the right people. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're saying that a building culture doesn't start when you onboard someone. It starts when you hire someone. You've got to hire the right people for the culture that you want. And you mentioned looking for energy makers rather than takers, which I really resonated with. And this idea of being we ambitious versus me ambitious. How do you find that in just a couple brief interactions in an interview?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't actually think the interview process is usually where it comes out. Like, it's very easy for someone to act a certain way for 30 minutes with you, right? Very hard for someone to act a certain way for 3 years while working. So I look at resume and references. I weigh those way higher than I weigh my interaction, right? So we do interview. We have a particular interview process that makes it really get a feel for somebody. We start with their first professional experience, and I'm asking them to like summarize not only what they did and learned in that experience, but also dive equally into the transitions. Hey, you were here. Why did you leave? Why did you pick to do the next thing that you were doing? Okay, then you were here. Why did you leave there? Why did you pick the next thing to do? Um, that's really important. And people typically don't get asked about the transitions as much. So they're very prepared for what were my strengths and what were my weaknesses. So they're not as prepared to say, okay, well, why did I leave that job? Did you hate your manager? Did you get fired? Did you get pulled into a new job because you were so good that you were getting attracted? Those are very different signals about how talented someone is. We really look for people that when they switch career moves, they're getting pulled into a new role, not getting pushed out. So that's a lot what I look for in it. And then I talk to references on book, off book, have a very clear process for like trying to get references to be open and candid. Cause obviously every reference's goal is to say good things about the person. So you really have to ask questions the right way to get an honest perspective. And so we have a particular process around that. And then we go back and mark out, I don't really believe in red flags. I think more about green flags and a little bit about yellow flags. Um, the reason that is there's, 7, 8 billion people in the world and you're building a team of 10, 100, 1,000, right? Like it should be about green flags that get you in the door, not red flags that rule you out. Like 99.99% of the world aren't going to work for you. So you should be looking for like exceptional things that say this person is the best at this job, not, oh, there's something really wrong, right?
Mm.
So that's kind of
Mhm.
how we approach hiring.
I like that. I like that. Looking for green flags over red flags. Okay. The second thing you mentioned was motivation and being able to. I think you'd mentioned be able to call people out to push them. What was the exact language you used when you talked about how to motivate people?
Care personally, challenge directly.
Yes, I think that trust has to be a core component in that, right? They have to trust you. They have to know that you care about and see them as human beings first, and employees second. How do you build that kind of culture in an organization? What are some of the steps that you do on a very practical day-to-day level?
Yeah. So, I mean, first, y- this is a framework that I'm absolutely borrowing. It's from a book called Radical Candor. It's a phenomenal book on leadership and managing people. Like, highly recommend you read it. It's one of the most influential books on me. Um, I think if you think about that quadrant, like she goes through like the care personally, don't care personally, challenge directly, don't challenge people, right? Like, what does it say if you're in each of those buckets? If you don't care and you don't challenge, you're checked out, right? Like you don't really care about the success of the organization, anything. You just don't care. You're apathetic, right? If you don't care personally and you challenge a ton, you're kind of a jerk, right? Like if you don't care about the individual, you're a jerk, and that's not gonna. No one wants to work for a jerk, right? Um, if you care personally but you don't challenge directly, you also you're actually demonstrating to the person you don't trust them, right? You're like, I have feedback that might make you better and the organization better, but I'm too afraid to say it because I'm worried about your reaction. Like that actually is a statement about our lack of trust, right? When I care personally and I challenge directly, we have enough of a relationship and trust that I can say, hey, Connor, I think last week you didn't give us your best. And I love you and I think you're capable of a ton of things. And so I'm going to hold you to giving us your best every single week, right? That's really where like the best work occurs. That's where the best relationships occur. And that only works if there is trust and there's courage and bravery on both sides of that relationship. So how do we do that? I mean, it's the little things, right? Like people know when you care about them and when you don't care about them. I think it's both of those buckets. Like it is caring and showing that you care. There's a lot of ways to do that. And it is challenging and not being nice, right? Like it's challenging someone when they're not giving their best or you think they can do better. It's being willing to have that conversation. Um, and that doesn't happen in 90-day performance reviews. That happens like, one of the things she talks about in that book is if it's important feedback and we have trust, I'm not going to wait a month and a half to tell you, hey, two months ago in a meeting, you did this, right? I'm going to say, hey, do you have 2 minutes? In this meeting, you said X. It made me react in this way. I think you could do it better this way. Think you're awesome. I want you to be better. So I'm trying to give you some feedback. And generally people are like, cool. Like, so, there's having that trust, there's giving the feedback. And then also like when you give the feedback, stating your intent is a really big thing. Like, I am telling you this because start with that, right? Now suddenly that takes someone's down their defenses. I'm telling you, I have some feedback for you. I'm telling you because I think it'll help you be a more effective leader. Tough news, right? Like suddenly someone's like, oh, now I'm listening. Like this person's telling me this because they care about me, not like because they're a jerk. So that's some of the techniques that we kind of use just to like, you got to like get past the monkey brain to talk to the human brain.
Mm, I like that. And do you tend to jump straight into that from day one, or do you have kind of a slow build-up process when someone is, we'll say, new to the organization, that trust isn't built and proven yet? Are there any steps you take to build it up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we are actually particularly good at this. So we have a slide of our cultural principles. And either during interviewing or on the person's first day, generally during interviewing, actually, like I want them to understand what we're about before they decide if they want to join or not. I will go through and take 30 minutes and go step by step and say, these are what they are. This is how we live them out. This is why they are the way they are. And they're not like rainbows and sunshine, right? They're like, these are the core beliefs we have in the way that we operate and build a business. And you're going to either be like attracted to them or repelled by them. And if you're repelled by them, like, great, like we just saved you and me a bunch of pain and time, right? Like if this isn't the right fit for you and our culture is not the only way to build things, right? Then go find a culture that is. But we try to say that right up front and then live it. And what it does is it makes onboarding much faster. When someone new enters a group, right? Like, again, let's like take company and business and everything out of it. Like individual enters group, right? The first thing they do is try to like understand the norms and what behaviors get rewarded and what behaviors get punished. And so people typically enter slowly and they observe. And that is an impediment to progress in a startup. You can't have your new hires come in and take 6 months to try to like slowly understand what's rewarded and not, and then start making an impact on month 7. They got to make an impact on day 1, right? And so by us going through this and living it, right, I can say to new employees as they come in, this is what's rewarded. I don't know what your last organization was like. Toe stepping here is rewarded, right? We want you to step on people's toes. If you get to something and you're like, I don't know if I should say it or not, and maybe, there's some hierarchical whatever, I'm like, hey, if you think that there's a way to make the organization better, say it. And if someone gets annoyed and they're not receptive, that's the problem. It's not the saying of the thing. Like, please come in and if you step on someone's toe, and then you got to live it, right? So like in week one, you then, when you do the review, be like, hey, look, you stuck your neck out and said, I know you're new. And you said, hey, this is like something I'm seeing in meeting two. And I actually really like that. Thank you for doing that.
Mhm.
Right. So I think it's communicating up front what the expectations for the culture and the organization are. Those have to be real. And then you have to reward and punish going with those things or not. That's how you get someone to enter into the group and be effective in like 2 weeks rather than in 6 months.
Yeah, that's really tactical and really practical. So you gave an example of the toe stepping principle, which is a great one. Do you have one or two others you'd be willing to share?
One of our principles is we have an incredibly high standard, right? We're very clear with that up front. Like, we are obsessed and we are trying to build an organization of only A players. So if you're looking for a 40-hour-a-week job where you can do okay work and then spend 5 p.m. on and all weekends, like not thinking about work, like this is probably not the place for you. And that's totally reasonable approach to live, by the way. Like, that's a very reasonable way to live your life, but it's not going to be here, right? Like, so if you're not ready to jump like all into the deep end and like live and breathe trying to create something great, like this is not the right spot for you. You probably want to be in a more mature company, right? So we try to be upfront with that. Um, Another one is those who do more get more. A lot of companies like don't say that out loud. And it's a huge thing. Like, the people who come in and create tremendous value for the organization, for the team, for our mission, right, are going to be rewarded. They're going to be rewarded with more responsibility. They're going to be rewarded with comp. Um, that's how we build an organization of A players, right? Is to make sure that the people who are really good, like, get the benefit of being really good and can succeed together. So we say that part out loud. Like, to us, that's what fair means, is the people who like contribute a ton, get a ton, and the people who like aren't as good won't be here very long. And we're very upfront about that, right? Like, it's a tough thing. I've had to let go of people that I really, really like, but their work is a B minus. And I'm not going to be able to keep and build a team of A plus players if they have to depend on a B minus player that's not giving or creating at the level that they are. So those are the type of things. Toe stepping is encouraged is another one. Feedback is a gift. Um, Eat the chocolate, right? Like, a lot of companies say eat the dog food. Ours is hopefully not dog food. Hopefully it's chocolate. It's tasty. It's yummy. It's good. But like, we're going to expect that you take lessons. You take lessons on our platform, because and you coach lessons. There's no way for us to uh, make the experience better for our users if we're not our users.
Mhm.
And so if you think, again, you're coming and it's going to be a 9 to 5, you know, no, the expectation is going to be that once a week you're going and taking a tennis lesson or a pickleball lesson with our coaches and then sharing your feedback. And so these are the types of things that I think up front, some people go like, you can literally see it in their eyes. They'll lean in and be like, this sounds amazing. And they'll like cut you off and be like, at my last organization, I had to work with this other person. He wasn't really good. And I was constantly covering for him, but no one would ever make that call. And like, I really want to be somewhere that operates like this. Or they'll be like, ooh, I don't know. Like, I have to leave work at 4 for this. Like, this doesn't align with my life today. And at that point, you're like, that's totally cool. Like, it's just not, there's not going to be a fit, because like this requires a level of intensity. And we're selecting for it. So, yeah, that's a small sampling of it.
Well, that's really powerful. I think you alluded to this, and I want to circle back to it really quick, because I think it's an important point that a good job description or interview or whatever you want to call it, culture, it should repel just as much as it attracts. When we're helping people find EAs or helping them place a chief of staff, we'll often say the same thing, that if you aren't repelling probably more candidates than you're attracting with the way you're trying to sell this job,
Yeah.
then you're going to get the wrong person in place.
Right.
So that's really powerful.
Yeah. And again, it's almost like there's like a respect for diversity in there, right? Like, we don't think we have the only right way to do things. We have a way of doing things that we're very opinionated about. There are other companies that have a way of doing things that look like this and look very different. And hiring is about finding fit. Like we think that this works for our business, our culture, our team, all people, and we want to attract other people that are like it and bring them in here. If they're not right for us, it's bless and release. It doesn't mean that we're bad or they're bad, but like I don't want to stop them from finding that this organization over here that runs totally different is actually a perfect for them. And so there's like a diversity in approaches for employees. There's a diversity in approaches for companies. And like the goal is to find the right fit between the right employees and the right company. It's not to attract everyone to your thing and have 7 billion people want to work there. It's get the right people in the door, the right people on the bus, so that you have a way of operating that works.
Yes. Yes. Let's talk a little bit about transparency, 'cause you'd mentioned that. And I think that maybe ties a little bit into this idea of feedback as a gift and building trust. A lot of people talk about being transparent as an organization, but what does that actually mean for you?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't believe in ultimate transparency. Like everyone has access to every piece of information. Everyone knows what everybody else makes. Like I actually think that can be a problem because it becomes a distraction. Like we shouldn't be focused. If you have 100 people, right? Um, and you show everyone each other's comp perfectly, right? Someone's going to feel like I deserve more. There's no way for that not to be true, right? They're going to say, based on X metric, I'm better than this person and they make more than me. And this person can look back and say, well, based on Y metric, I'm better than this person that should make more. And it can create like, now you're like focused on the wrong things, right? Like we're here to like accomplish a mission, like build something new for the world that doesn't exist that makes it better. If we're constantly focused on like these things. So I think there is a limit. There's certain things that like it's not beneficial to put 100% of all information out in the open. That said, I think we operate at like the 95th percentile of like transparency. So we share, every single Friday, we have a retro today. We go through, what's the bank balance? What's the runway that we have? What are the KPIs? How are we doing against those KPIs? Each department, what they are, green, yellow, red, are we hitting those? And then every month we give a scorecard publicly to the entire company. Here's marketing on a scale of 1 to 10. Here's how they did this month. Here's product on a scale of 1 to 10. Here's how they did this month. And sometimes it's a 9 and like we're celebrating them. And sometimes it's like it's a 4 or a 6, right? And you're like, we really didn't accomplish what we wanted to accomplish this month. I think that's incredibly important and actually really makes the organization more effective. Like people understand when they're performing well and when they're not, they know where they stand, right? That's the really important thing. If an organization, your marketing department is not performing well, right? You can't pretend like they are. Like it's not performing. You should work. Like the first answer is not, oh, you got a 6, fire everybody. Like the first answer is like, okay, you got a 6. We didn't accomplish what we wanted last month. Why? Let's like look at it, right? Like let's look at it together. Let's figure out how to problem solve. Is there a path forward where this group of people can get this to an 8 in the next month or a month from now? Like that's the first goal, right? But if you're at a 6 and then a 5 and then a 4, 3 months at a time, like you're not performing, you've been working to try to improve it. Like the likely outcome is you're going to have to make a change and people shouldn't be blindsided by when you have to make a change. So we are very, very open with transparency around company and team performance. And I think that creates actually an environment of trust. Like you're not in the back of your head saying, hey, am I going to get fired tomorrow? When you're like, I've got an 8 the last 3 months. Like they're happy. I've had that before, right? I've had people come to me and be like, I'm 3 weeks in. I don't know. Like we get a lot of feedback here. Do you hate me? And I'm like, dude, no, like look at your number. You're doing great. Right. Like that this is our culture. We give a lot of feedback. I'm giving you critical feedback because I want the best out of you. But like, I also am going to give you an evaluation and that you're like doing really well. Right. And so that this feedback is me helping you, not me trying to tell you I'm going to, let you go or whatever. So, that's our kind of position, like let people know where they stand on performance all the time. And I think it's a really good way to do things. But again, it's an approach that like, some people like, some people don't. And in a culture where feedback is a gift, it works really well with people that can receive that feedback. In a culture of people who are defensive or insecure or doesn't work super well, right? And so we try to select for the right people that match with that culture.
So you've shared over the course of our conversation so far, a lot of, I think, very tactical things. Let me ask you this. Is this Are these lessons you've learned along the way, or is this who you've always naturally been?
It's innate. I came out of the womb in 1991, and before I could speak, I was like, I have these cultural principles, and I'm going to bring them to the world. So, no, I totally learned them, and mostly through trial and error.
Mhm.
Uh, I started my first company when I was 22. It failed after raising $12 million in a very exciting journey, big ups and big downs. It eventually failed. Um, and when I started that company, I was a 22-year-old student in engineering. Um, and I didn't have any respect for culture. Any. Like, if you'd asked me what culture was at that point, I would have said culture is what like business people who can't build products talk about so that they can like have a job, right?
Mhm.
Like, I'd be like, it's just made up. Like, everything is about engineering. It's about what you build. Um, and the world has a way of teaching you lessons. Like, when you approach building a company with a belief that is a wrong belief, that belief will get beat out of you one way or another, right? Like, if you approach building a company thinking culture doesn't matter, I promise you, in 5 years, you will know that culture matters. Like, and so, it's through a lot of trial and error. Over time, I've evolved my philosophy. I'm sure in 10 years, I'll look back at this conversation and say, oh, I really like 70% of what I said, but 30%, like, man, that was silly. Like, I've learned that doesn't work or it doesn't work in this scenario. So these things just, you develop them over time through experiences, through learning, and I'm now 12 years into building companies. I'd like to think I've gotten somewhat better at them over that time. It's definitely not something that's innate, but you do have to be open to learning. Like, one of the tough things about building a company is knowing like when when to be hard headed, when to be stubborn, and when to adapt. And sometimes you need to be stubborn. Like, sometimes you like get into little battles, or this product isn't working right. I'm going to be stubborn and like keep iterating on it until I get it right. And sometimes you got to like cut bait and be like, wow, my approach is totally wrong. I need to like let go of this belief. It's not serving me anymore. And then like adopt a new belief. And, those kind of judgments are tough. Over time, you get them because like if you stick with a bad belief long enough, you'll just keep getting beat over the head with it until you let go of it. Um, but like in the moment, those are the difficult judgments that you have to make every single day building a company.
Great stuff. Then let's wrap up with one final question. I'm going to put you on the spot here. You've shared so much over the course of this conversation. If you could give your, let's say, 21, 22-year-old self just starting their first company one piece of advice, maybe something you've shared here today, maybe something completely different. Does anything come to mind?
I mean, the first words that immediately pop in mind are just keep going.
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything I could say to like impart wisdom on 21-year-old me that wouldn't happen through experience. And there've been many, many times over the last 12 years where I've thought like, what have I done? You know, uh, first company was my everything. It was my entire personality, right? Um, Made lots of mistakes. Ego got really big. I thought I was the, greatest thing since sliced bread. And then when that doesn't work out, it's incredibly deflating, right? And you want to quit and you never want to do it again. And those ups and downs are like the reality of going through this stuff. Like, I think most generally in hardworking people, if they like keep at it for like 10 to 15 years, you will learn and you'll get somewhere really good. But there's a lot of moments of crises along that. Entrepreneurship is an iterative game. I think if you play it like an iterative game and you say, hey, I'm going to do like 10 of these and I'm going to compound my learnings over time, I'm going to do it for 15 years, you probably succeed. But if you say, I'm going to do it once and I expect to have a home run on the first one, and then if it doesn't work out, I'm going to like run away to do something else, then you probably are just wasting time. Like,
Hmm.
you're going to spend 2, 3 years working on something. Odds are is it's going to fail. Like, first time entrepreneurs, the failure rate is incredibly high. Like 90 plus, depends what you count as starting a company, but either 90+% or like 99+%, right? Um, so if you play it as a one off and you think it's a get rich quick thing, like, you're going to be disappointed. And if you run away from that path, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. But if you play it like an iterative game that requires a lot of personal growth and you stick with it through the ups and the downs, I think most people end up being really glad that they took that route. I certainly am at this point in time. It's something that I love. I think I've gotten pretty good at it. I was not good at it when I started, but the only way that I got good at it was doing it over and over and over and losing and getting beat in the head and then like eventually growing and changing. And so, yeah, that would be the advice. I'd say just keep going.
The Well, I think I could probably sit here and interview you for another 2 or 3 hours and I'd still keep getting great things, but that feels like a really poignant point to wrap this up on. So thank you for being on the show, for sharing all of that. I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of this, ton of tactical stuff. Tyler, thank you so much for your time. It was great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Connor.